Welcome to another edition of Woods for Trees Stories. Woods for Trees channel is created to explain the big picture of the issues at hand and not to get lost in the nitty-gritties. It means it is easy to get lost and confused in among the woods if we are inside a forest. But if we raise above the forest for a bird's eye view, then we will be able to see the forest for what it is. The surroundings, the landscape, the trees with the leaves and flowers, and not just the woods. These cartoons capture the last 2 years of Trump. As we have seen in the last 2 years since Trump got elected, he has shown no morals or ethics whatsoever. All he cares about is himself, and to get what he wants, Trump will not shrink from sinking to any depths. He hijacked the Republican Party using the Tea Party races. He branded all his Republican opponents as liars with his own lies. Called the Democratic black senators as low IQ people. Branded the Mexicans as rapists and murderers. Worse, he accused the mainstream outlets like CNN, NBC, ABC, CBC as fake news outlets. Picked up unfair fights with decent reporters who are just doing their jobs. The social media with no checks and balances have been hijacked by the likes of Putin to spread lies and false propaganda to undermine Western governments and its democracies. The Trump has simply taken a leaf out of Putin's book and made it into his own fake news specialty of his own. Now, the fake news are everywhere in the world. This episode is to show the world. This episode is to show to the world how low in the immoral depths Trump can and will go to protect himself from all the legal troubles he finds himself in. Firing FBI directors James Comey and Mr. McCabe, firing his Attorney General Mr. Sessions, and insulting and humiliating him for recusing himself from the Russian probe, lying to FBI about Russian conspiracy to publish stolen WikiLeaks files, whipping up hate during midterm election that resulted in 11 Jewish people being shot to death in cold blood by a racist. And now, as he finds himself being cornered and is back to the wall and nowhere to hide, he is lashing out on the sacred pillars of our democracy. He clearly shows in this conservative conference that he will sink to any depths to save himself.
This is how I got elected, by being off script. If we don't go off script, our country's in big trouble, folks, because we have to get it back. The Attorney General says, I'm going to recuse myself. And I said, why the hell didn't he tell me that before I put him in? How do you recuse yourself? But the person that appointed Robert Mueller never received a vote. Robert Mueller put 13 of the angriest Democrats in the history of our country on the commission. The Green New Deal, right? Green New Deal. I encourage it. I think it's really something that they should promote. No planes, no energy. When the wind stops blowing, that's the end of your electric. Let's hurry up. Darling, is the wind blowing today? I'd like to watch television, darling. If you tell a joke, if you're sarcastic, if you're having fun with the audience, if you're in live television with millions of people and 25,000 people in an arena, and if you say something like, Russia, please, if you can, get us Hillary Clinton's emails. Please, Russia, please get us the emails. having a good time. I'm laughing. We're all having fun. And then that fake CNN and others say, he asked Russia to go get the emails. Horrible. I mean, I saw it like 2 weeks ago. I'm watching, and they're talking about one of the points. He asked Russia for the emails. These people are sick. We're waiting for a report by people that weren't elected. Think of this. We had the greatest election. In all fairness, I used to hear Andrew Jackson. This was now greater than the election of Andrew Jackson. People say that. We had the greatest of all time. Now we have people that lost. And unfortunately, you put the wrong people in a couple of positions, and they leave people for a long time that shouldn't be there. And all of a sudden, they're trying to take you out with bull, okay?
Well, there's so much to talk about there. First of all, those people that were, quote, trying to take him out are people that he appointed, or people that his appointments appointed, whether you're talking about, as he said, Jeff Sessions, a Republican, Christopher Wray, a Republican. I mean, you can go down the long list of people. I mean, they're Republicans. Rod Rosenstein, a Republican. Bob Mueller, a lifelong Republican. You just go down the list. So, of course, that's nonsense. Also, he accuses the media for being sick for something that the media didn't did. We didn't talk about the jokes that he told in front of crowds of 25,000. We all have talked about a press conference he had where he looked into the camera without a smile on his face and without any intention of telling a joke, saying, Russia, if you have the emails, send them. And I think the reason, of course, why he's lying about that is he's feeling the pressure because, Mika, of course, that night is when the GRU, Russia's military intel arm, began trying to hack into the DNC. So this is all his people have all said, even his Secretary of Homeland Security, they've all said that Russia's hacking in 2016 and continued hacking is a threat to American democracy. So he can pretend it's a joke and he can pass it off as a joke. And who knows, maybe there'll be a couple people that lack knowledge and they're ignorant enough to believe that it was just a joke. But of course it wasn't. But Mika, it's so much more than this. This is really nitpicking. People have decided that they're going to support Donald Trump no matter what happens, no matter what evidence comes out. He's got his 40%, 41% saying they're going to vote for him, and nothing will ever change that. As he said during the campaign, he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and people would still vote for him. We now have a cult of personality that would actually allow that to happen. I have no doubt he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, and that 41% who had been swept into this cult of personality would still support him. It's not said in anger. That's not said in despair. That's just a basic logical conclusion based upon everything that we've seen over the past 2.5 years. That's where we are in American politics, and Democrats have to figure out a way to break enough Americans out of a spell to actually get somebody back in the White House that respects Madisonian democracy.
That can win, actually.
That can win.
Which some would argue it is. It's still, we're a long way away from knowing who that person is. Coming up on Morning Joe.
As you know, to your consternation, I mean, it bugs you, and it has for some time, that I'm constantly trying to figure out what the other side thinks, whether I'm a Republican and they're liberal Democrats, whatever. And it's the same thing with Trump supporters, just trying to figure it out. What am I missing? What are my blind spots? And there are a lot of blind spots, whether, I'm trying to figure out what people on the far left are thinking or what I'm trying to figure out what Trumpists are thinking. But there is no reasoning through some of the hellacious things that were said at CPAC this last week. There is no explaining away some of the inhumane statements that were made at CPAC, some of the inane statements, some of the stupid, just no other word but stupid. But there were a lot of low points there for a conference that I used to go to every year. The worst, of course, was the celebration of John McCain's death. And the fact that the announcement of John McCain's death and the mocking and the attacking of, quote, John McCain's ghost caused the people of CPAC to rise to their feet in a thunderous applause. If you can imagine that these people, who obviously, again, I don't know if they weren't raised right. I don't know if their mothers and fathers never taught them basic values. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they just lost it along the way. Maybe they were just swept up in the excitement of actually being somewhere. I don't know. But when you applaud the death of an American war hero, a man who was imprisoned and beaten so badly that he couldn't even raise his arms over his head for the rest of his life, a man who was allowed to go free early but refused to, said he wasn't going to walk out until his band of brothers walked out with him, who wasn't going to get ahead of anybody else that had been in the Hanoi Hilton. When you applaud the death of that man at CPAC, when actually very little separates you and that man that you were mocking, who recently died, that cancer survivor, by the way, whose wife and whose children suffered with him and watched him suffering and battling cancer and slowly dying, to see now that his death was something that Matt Schlapp and CPAC would applaud, something that Matt Schlapp, CPAC, would think was a great thing to be excited about, something that not only Matt Schlapp, but also Republicans that spoke at that event, who were John McCain's co-workers in the Senate for years. The fact that Donald Trump has caused this in the Republican Party, that he's caused this in American politics, actually, I think, is probably going to be his worst legacy. Many terrible, terrible legacies. But those people that stood up and applauded for John McCain's death, let me just say to you, you may not be bad people, but you sure as hell gave a good impression of what a bad person looks like. And I mean this, and I do mean this with all the love in my heart, understanding that we all make mistakes and all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. I really do hope that this Monday morning, when you wake up, you think about that moment and you feel a little ashamed. You feel a little ashamed and you tell yourself, I've got to do better next time. I can support Donald Trump without being hateful. I can support Donald Trump and still not devalue the worth of human beings that don't look exactly like me, who don't think exactly like me, who don't worship exactly like me. It's not too much to ask. Just think about it. That's all I'm saying. Just think about it this morning.